The rain-slicked streets of Manhattan glistened under the sodium glow of streetlights, but Vincent's heart pounded louder than the city's pulse. He stood outside his father's penthouse office, the glass tower looming like a judgment. At 24, he was about to tell Richard Caldwell, real estate tycoon and unyielding patriarch, that he was gay, a truth he'd buried under years of tailored suits and forced smiles. The elevator doors slid open, and Vincent stepped into the sleek office, all steel and glass, a monument to his father's empire. Richard sat behind his desk, his silver hair immaculate, his eyes sharp as ever. "You wanted to talk?" he asked, barely looking up from his tablet. Vincent's throat tightened. "Dad, I'm gay," he blurted, the words spilling out like a confession to a priest. "I've known for years. I can't hide it anymore." The silence that followed was suffocating. Richard's fingers froze on the screen, his jaw tightening. Then, a slow, calculated smile curved his lips, not warm, not proud, but predatory. "Interesting," he said, leaning back. "Very interesting." Vincent's relief curdled into unease. He'd expected anger, maybe disappointment, but not this. "What do you mean?" Richard stood, pacing to the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the city. "You've handed me a weapon, Vincent, and I know exactly how to use it." He turned, his gaze cutting through Vincent like a blade. "You're going to seduce Ethan Harper." Vincent's breath caught. Ethan Harper, son of James Harper, CEO of Harper Enterprises, Caldwell Industries' fiercest rival. The two companies had been locked in a brutal war for Manhattan's real estate crown for decades, a feud fueled by betrayal and greed. Ethan, with his golden curls and disarming charm, was a rising star in his father's empire, and Vincent had only met him once, at a gala where their eyes locked for a moment too long. "Seduce him?" Vincent's voice cracked. "Dad, I just told you who I am, and you're turning it into what? A corporate game." "This isn't a game," Richard snapped. "Harper's planning a takeover. He's got insiders in our boardroom, and I need leverage. Ethan's his weakness. Get close to him, get his trust, get his secrets. Break him if you have to." Vincent's stomach churned. "You're asking me to use my identity as a weapon. That's sick." Richard's eyes narrowed. "You want to be part of this family? Prove it. You've been handed everything. Private schools, penthouses, a future at the top. Now it's time to earn it." The words landed like a punch. Vincent had spent his life trying to please his father, but this was a line he didn't know if he could cross. Yet the weight of his father's expectations, the fear of losing his place in the only world he'd ever known, pressed down on him. "I'll think about it," Vincent muttered, turning to leave. "Don't think too long," Richard called after him. "The gala at the Met is tomorrow night. Ethan will be there. Make your move." The Metropolitan Museum of Art glittered under chandeliers, its halls filled with New York's elite. Vincent adjusted his tie, his palms sweaty despite the cool air. He scanned the crowd, his heart racing, not just from nerves, but from the memory of Ethan's hazel eyes, the way they'd lingered on him months ago. He spotted Ethan across the room, standing near a marble statue, his tailored charcoal sweater hugging his athletic frame. At 26, Ethan carried himself with an effortless confidence that made Vincent's pulse quicken. He was beautiful, golden curls catching the light, a smile that could disarm a room. But Vincent wasn't here to fall for him. He was here to destroy him. "Vincent Caldwell," Ethan said, his voice warm as he approached. "Didn't expect to see you here. Thought you'd be off brokering deals for your dad." Vincent forced a smile, his heart hammering. "Even I need a night off. You here to charm the donors, or just enjoy the view?" Ethan's laugh was soft, genuine. "A bit of both." "You." "Same." Vincent lied, his father's orders echoing in his mind. He gestured to the bar. "Drink." They fell into conversation easily, their banter sharp yet playful. Ethan was quick-witted, his stories about art and travel laced with a passion Vincent hadn't expected. As they moved to a quieter corner, Vincent felt a dangerous pull, a spark that wasn't part of the plan. "You're not what I expected," Ethan said, his gaze lingering on Vincent's face. "Most heirs are all ego. You're different." Vincent's chest tightened. He wanted to believe Ethan's words, to lean into the warmth of his attention. But Richard's voice clawed at him. "Get his secrets. Break him." "I could say the same about you," Vincent replied, his voice low. Their hands brushed as Ethan handed him a glass, and the contact sent a jolt through Vincent's body. For a moment, he forgot his father, the feud, the plan. There was only Ethan, close enough to feel his breath. The night blurred into stolen glances and shared laughter. By the time they stepped onto the museum's rooftop, the city sprawling below, Vincent was drowning in guilt. Ethan leaned against the railing, his profile sharp against the skyline. "You ever feel like you're living someone else's life?" he asked, his voice soft. Vincent froze. "All the time." Ethan turned, his eyes searching Vincent's. "Then why do we keep doing it?" Before Vincent could answer, Ethan's hand grazed his, intentional this time. The air between them crackled, and Vincent's resolve wavered. He was supposed to be the predator, but Ethan's touch felt like a lifeline. Vincent barely slept that night, his mind a battlefield of desire and duty. By morning, he was pacing his Soho apartment, replaying Ethan's words, his touch, the way his smile had felt like a promise. He wanted to see him again, not for his father, but for himself. But Richard's call came early, his voice cold. "Did you make contact?" "Yeah," Vincent said, his throat dry. "We talked." "Good. Keep him close. I want results, Vincent. Don't disappoint me." The line went dead, and Vincent stared at his phone, dread pooling in his gut. He wasn't just betraying Ethan. He was betraying himself. Yet the thought of defying his father, of losing the empire he'd been groomed to inherit, was paralyzing. He met Ethan again that weekend, this time at a cozy Brooklyn cafe. Ethan's easy smile and quick humor made it harder to keep his guard up. They talked about everything: music, dreams, the pressure of their father's legacies. Ethan confessed he wanted out of the corporate game, to start his own art gallery, free from his father's shadow. "That's brave," Vincent said, his voice catching. He wanted to tell Ethan the truth, to confess the twisted plan, but fear stopped him. Instead, he leaned closer, their knees brushing under the table. Ethan's hand found his, fingers intertwining. "Your trouble, Vincent Caldwell," he teased, but his eyes were serious, searching. Vincent's heart ached. He was falling, and it was the worst possible timing. Weeks passed, and Vincent was caught in a dangerous dance. Every moment with Ethan pulled him deeper, but his father's demands loomed like a guillotine. They met in secret, rooftop bars, late-night walks through Central Park, stolen kisses in the shadows of the city. Each touch, each whispered confession, made Vincent's mission feel more like a betrayal. Ethan was an open book, sharing stories of his childhood, his strained relationship with his father, and his dreams of breaking free. Vincent, meanwhile, fed Richard just enough to keep him satisfied. Vague details about Ethan's habits, his meetings, nothing substantial. But the pressure was mounting. "You're distracted," Ethan said one night, as they sat on a bench overlooking the Hudson. His voice was gentle, but his eyes were sharp. "Something's eating at you." Vincent's heart raced. He wanted to confess, to spill everything, but the words stuck in his throat. Instead, he kissed Ethan, desperate to drown out the guilt. Ethan melted into him, but when they pulled apart, his expression was troubled. "You can tell me, you know," Ethan said. "Whatever it is." Vincent forced a smile. "It's just family stuff. You know how it is." Ethan nodded, but the doubt in his eyes lingered. Vincent hated himself for it. Richard was growing impatient. At a tense dinner in their Upper East Side penthouse, he grilled Vincent for details. "What have you got on Harper? Emails? Plans? Anything I can use?" Vincent hesitated, his fork hovering over his plate. "He's careful, doesn't talk much about business." Richard's eyes narrowed. "You're not trying hard enough. Get me something concrete, or I'll assume you're not up to the task." The threat hung heavy. Vincent knew what failure meant: disinheritance, exile from the only life he'd known. But every step toward betraying Ethan felt like a step toward losing himself. The next day, Vincent found himself at Ethan's apartment, a sleek loft in Dumbo with exposed brick and art covering the walls. Ethan was sketching, his hands moving with a grace that made Vincent's chest ache. "You're good," Vincent said, peering over his shoulder at a charcoal drawing of the Brooklyn Bridge. Ethan grinned. "Flattery won't get you anywhere." "Well, maybe a little." He set the sketch aside and pulled Vincent close, their lips meeting in a slow, searing kiss. For a moment, Vincent let himself forget. But when Ethan stepped away to grab his phone, Vincent's eyes fell on a folder labeled Harper Enterprises. His father's voice echoed, "Get his secrets." Heart pounding, Vincent opened the folder while Ethan was in the kitchen. Inside were emails, financial reports, and a memo about a potential merger. It was exactly what Richard needed. Vincent's hands shook as he snapped photos with his phone, guilt clawing at his insides. When Ethan returned, Vincent slammed the folder shut, but Ethan's eyes narrowed. "What are you doing?" "Nothing," Vincent said too quickly. "Just looking at your art." Ethan's jaw tightened, but he didn't press. The air between them grew heavy, the trust they'd built fraying at the edges. Vincent sent the photos to his father that night, his stomach twisting with every tap of his phone. Richard's reply was immediate. "Good work. Keep going." But Vincent couldn't sleep. He saw Ethan's face, the hurt in his eyes, and knew he'd crossed a line. The next morning, he called Ethan, his voice trembling. "Can we meet? I need to talk." They met at a quiet park in Chelsea, the autumn leaves crunching underfoot. Ethan looked wary, his usual warmth tempered. "What's going on, Vincent?" Vincent took a deep breath, the truth burning in his chest. "I haven't been honest with you. My father, he asked me to get close to you, to get information on your company." Ethan's face went pale, then hard. "You used me?" "No." Vincent's voice broke. "It started that way, but I swear, everything between us, it's real. I'm falling for you, Ethan, and I hate myself for what I've done." Ethan stepped back, his eyes blazing. "You expect me to believe that? After you went through my things?" "I'm sorry," Vincent whispered, tears stinging his eyes. "I didn't want to. I was scared of losing everything." Ethan shook his head, his voice cold. "You already have." He turned and walked away, leaving Vincent alone in the park, the weight of his betrayal crushing him. The days that followed were a blur of regret and self-loathing. Vincent tried calling Ethan, texting, even showing up at his favorite cafe, but Ethan was a ghost. The city, once vibrant with possibility, felt gray and hollow. Vincent had betrayed the one person who'd made him feel alive. And for what? His father's approval? A legacy he wasn't even sure he wanted? Richard, meanwhile, was thrilled. The stolen documents gave him the edge he needed, and he moved quickly, leaking details of Harper Enterprises' merger to the press. The stock plummeted, and James Harper's reputation took a hit. At a board meeting, Richard clapped Vincent on the shoulder, his smile triumphant. "You've done well, son. This is what it means to be a Caldwell." Vincent felt sick. He excused himself, retreating to the bathroom to splash cold water on his face. Staring in the mirror, he barely recognized the man looking back, sharp cheekbones, haunted green eyes, a stranger wearing his skin. He couldn't keep doing this. He had to make it right. Vincent tracked Ethan to an art gallery in Soho, a small space where Ethan was showcasing his sketches. The room was crowded, but Vincent spotted him immediately, his golden curls catching the light as he spoke to a guest. Vincent's heart ached at the sight, but he steeled himself and approached. "Ethan, please," Vincent said, his voice low. "I need to talk to you." Ethan's eyes hardened, but he nodded toward a back room. Once alone, Vincent poured out his heart. "I was wrong. I let my father control me, and I hurt you. But I'm done with his games. I want to fix this, whatever it takes." Ethan crossed his arms, his expression unreadable. "You think an apology erases what you did? My father's company is in chaos because of you." "I know," Vincent said, his voice breaking. "And I'll do anything to make it right. I'll go public, tell the truth about what my father did. I'll testify if I have to." Ethan's eyes softened, just a fraction. "Why would you do that?" "You'd lose everything." "Because you're worth more than my father's empire," Vincent said, the words raw and honest. "I love you, Ethan. I didn't realize it until I lost you." The silence stretched, heavy and fragile. Ethan's jaw worked, emotions warring in his eyes. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I can trust you again." "I'll earn it back," Vincent promised. "However long it takes." Ethan didn't respond, but he didn't walk away either. It was a sliver of hope, and Vincent clung to it. Over the next weeks, Vincent worked to undo the damage. He met with a journalist, anonymously leaking details of his father's scheme. The story broke, and the fallout was swift. Richard's reputation took a hit, and Caldwell Industries faced scrutiny. Vincent knew he was risking everything, but for the first time, he felt free. He and Ethan began talking again, cautiously. Coffee dates turned into long conversations, and slowly, Ethan's walls started to come down. One night, as they sat on Ethan's couch, Vincent reached for his hand. I'm not asking for forgiveness yet, Vincent said. But I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Ethan squeezed his hand, his eyes warm. You're an idiot, Vincent Caldwell. Vincent laughed, the sound shaky with relief. Yeah, but I'm your idiot. The fallout from Vincent's confession shook the foundations of Caldwell Industries. Richard was furious, summoning Vincent to his office the moment the story hit the newsstands. You betrayed me, he roared, slamming his fist on the desk. After everything I've given you. Vincent stood tall, his voice steady. You used me. You turned my truth into a weapon. I'm done being your pawn. Richard's face twisted with rage. You're cut off. No inheritance, no company, nothing. You're no son of mine. The words stung, but Vincent felt a strange relief. Good, he said. I don't want to be. He walked out, the weight of his father's expectations lifting with every step. For the first time, he was choosing his own path. Vincent moved into a small apartment in Brooklyn, funded by savings he'd tucked away. It was modest, a far cry from the penthouses of his past, but it felt like home. Ethan helped him settle in, their relationship growing stronger with every shared moment. One evening, as they cooked dinner together, Ethan opened up about his own father. He's furious about the merger falling apart, Ethan said, chopping vegetables. But he's starting to listen to me. I told him I want out, that I'm opening my gallery. Vincent smiled, stirring the sauce. You're really doing it. Yeah, Ethan said, his eyes bright. And I want you there. At the opening. Vincent's heart swelled. I wouldn't miss it. The gallery opening was a triumph, filled with Ethan's sketches and a crowd of admirers. Vincent stood by his side, proud and in awe. As the night wound down, Ethan pulled him into a quiet corner. You've changed, Ethan said, his voice soft. The Vincent I met at the Met wouldn't have walked away from his father's empire. I had to, Vincent said. For you. For me. Ethan kissed him, slow and deep, and Vincent knew he'd made the right choice. But the past wasn't done with them. Richard, desperate to salvage his reputation, launched a smear campaign against Vincent, painting him as a disloyal son. The media ate it up, and Vincent found himself hounded by reporters. Ethan was his rock, shielding him from the worst of it. Let them talk, Ethan said one night, as they lay in bed. They don't know you like I do. Vincent traced the curve of Ethan's jaw, gratitude overwhelming him. I don't deserve you. Ethan grinned. Probably not. But you're stuck with me. As winter settled over New York, Vincent and Ethan faced new challenges. Harper Enterprises, still reeling from the merger fallout, launched a counterattack against Caldwell Industries. The feud reignited, and Vincent found himself caught in the crossfire, his name dragged through the mud by both sides. One morning, a letter arrived from Richard's lawyer, threatening legal action for defamation. Vincent stared at it, his hands shaking. He's not going to stop, he said to Ethan, who sat across from him at their small kitchen table. Then we fight back, Ethan said, his voice firm. Together. They hired a lawyer, a sharp woman named Lena who specialized in corporate disputes. She dug into Richard's shady dealings, uncovering evidence of insider trading and coercion. Vincent hesitated to use it. He didn't want to become his father, but Ethan convinced him it was the only way to end the cycle. The legal battle was grueling, but Vincent and Ethan faced it as a team. Late nights poring over documents, stolen moments of laughter amidst the stress, it bound them closer. Vincent marveled at Ethan's strength, his unwavering belief in them. One night, as they walked through a snow-dusted Central Park, Ethan stopped under a street lamp. I love you, Vincent, he said, his breath visible in the cold air. No matter what happens. Vincent's heart soared. I love you too. They kissed, the world fading away, and Vincent knew he'd found his home, not in a penthouse or an empire, but in Ethan. The courtroom loomed large, a sterile space filled with tension. Vincent testified against his father, his voice steady as he recounted the manipulation, the stolen documents, the betrayal. Richard's face was a mask of fury, but Vincent didn't flinch. The judge ruled in their favor, ordering Richard to pay damages and halting his smear campaign. Caldwell Industries took a hit, but Vincent felt no regret. He'd chosen truth over power, love over legacy. Spring brought renewal. Ethan's gallery thrived, and Vincent found work as a consultant for small businesses, using his skills to help others without the shadow of corporate greed. They moved into a shared apartment, a cozy space filled with art and laughter. One evening, as they stood on their balcony overlooking Brooklyn, Vincent wrapped his arms around Ethan. "I never thought I'd have this," he said, his voice soft. "A life that's mine." Ethan turned, his eyes bright. "You earned it." "We both did." They kissed, the city humming below, a testament to their resilience. Vincent had come out to his father expecting rejection, but instead, he'd found himself. He'd lost an empire but gained a love that was worth more than all the skyscrapers in Manhattan. The feud between Caldwell and Harper faded into irrelevance, a relic of a world they'd both left behind. Vincent and Ethan built something new, a life rooted in authenticity, where love wasn't a weapon but a promise. As the sun set, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink, Vincent knew he'd made the right choice. He'd come out, he'd fallen, and he'd risen, not as a Caldwell, but as Vincent, a man who loved fiercely and lived honestly. And that was enough.